Tawheed.
This is Nicholas Garden.
And this is Rob Chappell.
And it's 365 Amplified. This sounded like the way that we were able to do this opening.
I was going to say, we nailed it.
We nailed it.
It was that week off.
We all needed that
reset.
break. See what happens, y'all, when you let us take a rest and a break? We are on fire. But not really on fire, because that's a thing. Yeah. Let's go ahead and move into our first story.
Jump right into it.
We're going to jump right into these things. Look.
Yeah.
Some of us have rested and are revitalized and ready to go.
Yeah.
So let's
Rest?
go. No, I didn't rest really that much. I got a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Anybody want one?
No, it's the most influential Native American list this week.
It is.
There's 25 people who are doing big work all over the state, all of whom are indigenous, connected either to one of the Wisconsin nations or another one, but happen to live in Wisconsin. But it's as always, we measure influence maybe differently than other media outlets might.
Yep. Right.
You can have influence as a CEO of a bank, or as an attorney, or as a classroom teacher.
Yep.
You know, and we've got a lot of. There are several. This is something I've learned just in the last couple of years. There are several community development financial institutions specific to Native American people and Native American businesses.
Yep.
And we've got a couple of the executives of those on the list this year. We've got a school district administrator. We've got a couple of attorneys, a couple of judges. Monica Isham, for example, is a Sawyer County Circuit Court judge, the first Indigenous woman elected as a judge up there. So people who you may not have heard of, but you should. Yeah,
you should know has influence and impact within our state.
And what's really interesting about the Native American list, particularly, now we should mention we've been doing these lists since the beginning of like our third month in business. We did our first ever Black
list,
leaders list. We did a Black and Latino list for the first several years, and people were asking us, when are you going to do Native Americans? When are you going to do Asian Americans? And we just didn't have the relationships yet to do it with credibility and authenticity. So finally, 2020 is when we felt like we had
enough support.
We've taken our first 5 years to kind of build that. And so this is our 6th annual Native American list, and this is the one list that is most statewide.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot of the Native American leader type live up north.
Yeah.
And a lot live in Milwaukee. And a lot live in Madison. But it's far less concentrated
in one
the urban
area.
areas. Yeah. So that's also really cool to see folks way up north and around the state. So that's fun, and that is we've published it in 5 parts. If you've been paying attention to Madison 365, you've seen those parts come through. We'll publish the entire list in one big post tomorrow on Saturday.
Yep.
And so you can get a look at that, and
And if you know somebody that we've missed that we should know that you feel is influential, submit that. Right? Like these lists are also generated by our listeners and readers as well, as much as it is by the folks that we've made community with, from with other folks within other influential lists also help curate these lists as well. Like if there's somebody we are missing, and we are sure there are folks that are missing, please send us those names.
Yeah, and the next list coming up later in the summer will be the Asian American list, which is East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, that whole region, pretty wide open about that. Yeah. So send us those as well. news@madison365.org.
Now let's go ahead and move into our next conversation this morning, Rob.
Election's coming up.
It is April 1st.
April
not
2nd.
April 2nd. Oh no, why do I think
No, April 1st.
Yeah,
April
I was going to
1st.
say, like, why did I think it was the 1st?
April Fool's.
Look at Rob trying to talk over me and tell me the wrong date. What are you, working for somebody?
I think April 1st is the worst day to have an election.
I know, disagree, but I get the law.
Like, would you believe who won? No.
I know. Maybe they'll announce it on the 2nd.
There was a whole bunch of people in Madison got postcards in support of Susan Crawford. We'll talk about the state Supreme Court race in a second, but urging you to vote for Susan Crawford for your rights and whatever on April 11th.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's why I thought it was April 11th, because I did also give that, and I kept thinking it was April 11th, and you kept saying April 1st, April 1st.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
So it almost worked. I don't know. Everyone's like, this would never work, but it almost did.
It almost did, because people, what's nice is that people use social media to share that, and like, wait a minute. And also, like, the postcards, some of them say April 11th clearly. Some of them look like they imply April 11th with an exclamation part.
Right.
like right at the end of the one.
And some people,
Which was interesting. It's like, oh, they did a second round.
when these were shared on social media, it was like, that seems like an honest mistake, but no. If one person got that postcard, it'd be fine, but like several people got that postcard.
Yeah.
Signed by different people, who had signed up as a volunteer for the Susan Crawford campaign and with this nefarious motive, which is
ridiculous.
pretty awful. And also you have other people pouring lots and lots of money into this race. It's a very important race statewide. Whichever side you're on, it's a very important race. Yeah. Because it will decide a lot of things going forward. It could decide different new congressional districts.
Yep, and redistricting maps again. Like they could make that page.
The state assembly district maps are done. Like that's set in stone pretty much. But the congressional ones are still kind of being
looked
litigated.
At. Yeah.
Ooh, redlining's coming back.
Well, be mindful. Like that could come back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's kind of sort of the reason why we're saying, like, look, I know it feels like a smaller, less important election, especially after the last one, but it is incredibly impactful locally as well as at the state level and nationally. All these little things matter and have an impact. And there are other things besides just that Supreme Court race on there, right?
Yep. Obviously, all the local elections in Madison, the entire council is up for election. Several of those races are contested, which we've talked about several times. And our guest today is Joanne Pritchett, who's running for 9th District. Keeping in mind, if you're in an even numbered district, you're only electing somebody for 1 year. Because now that after this, they're going to be staggered, so it'll only be half the council up for election every year instead of the whole thing up every other year.
Oh, so you have to vote every year now?
Well, no, it's that there's still 2-year terms, but they'll be staggered. So instead of the entire council being up every 2 years, half the council will be up every 1 year.
But you still have to pay. You should pay attention.
But still pay attention. The other thing that's on the ballot is the referendum on the constitutional amendment to require ID to vote, which is similar to previous amendments in that it would not change anything practically day to day because this is already required.
Yep.
The law is already requiring,
and it's not expired.
ID to vote,
and it's not expiring either, right?
No.
Like that's the other thing.
There's no sunset. This is it's state law.
It's already there.
You didn't used to be the case, but now it's the case. You have to show ID to vote, and what they're trying to do is sort of entomb that in the state constitution, which because you could. A new legislature could repeal that law.
Yep.
It's very difficult to repeal a constitutional amendment. So they're trying to basically set it in stone forever. So if you don't like the current law, I would say vote no.
Yep.
If you do like the current law, vote yes. But maybe even not vote yes because it's still law. It
already exists, right? Like it's already there, and quite frankly, embedding it in the Constitution is an issue about limiting access, right, for folks in various different ways. Understand that it is a bit of a way to incorporate fear, right, in the idea that folks are committing fraud with regards to voting, which no, they're not.
Right. And
also the current executive order that the president just signed, requiring or saying that he would like to require IDs, real ID, whatever, does not count for this election.
Right, because this is not a federal election.
It's not a federal election, and also it's also an executive order. I'm not sure that's, again, executive orders are sort of indications. Some of it can be law or whatever we want to call it, but some of it is just an indication of where he would like to go, right? And an idea of where he wants to be. It does not make it law just yet. So it's sort of just like an indication of where we're going to go, what the next fight's going to be. So, but that current executive order requiring real ID for elections does not apply for our local election on April 1st.
Right.
Right?
That's absolutely right.
Go ahead.
You have to get real IDs for real this time?
Yeah. Well,
they've been pushing it off for years.
Yeah, that's what the executive order would say, which only can apply to federal elections, and it's not real clear that
he has power to make that.
Because all those elections are administered at the county level anyway, so it's not clear to me that executive order would even take effect locally.
Yeah.
But maybe in a federal election.
But it's also very, very inconvenient to get a real ID.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What are the differences between the real ID?
There
and your
is
state
none.
issue?
There's a little gold star on it, and you have to bring so many
Right.
proofs of where you live. And
Yeah.
somehow you always manage to bring the wrong things that are unacceptable the 3 times you've tried to get it at the DMV.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah.
It's
Happens
not
to
enough.
everyone,
Not enough.
not just me.
Well, my thing too is like, didn't you have to in your previous, like your driver, like your non-real ID, right? Like not the real ID, but it's a real ID. Didn't you already have to prove?
You did, but
So why
Now
couldn't
you
they
have
use
to
that
do-
as an ID, as like proof?
it has to be different, and you have to bring more things,
Yeah.
more proof of.
As you can tell, I have
address.
not done my real ID yet because I
Nor
got a
have I.
passport.
Nor have I, but I
Yeah.
we should at some point.
I don't have it. I brought too few things. It
One,
was-
two, few things. It's not enough. Someone pointed out that they're like,
No.
is he pushing real ID to get like some sort of federal money into the pot because they're like wasting spending in all these executive orders and firings and stuff like, hey everyone, get your real ID now because we need money.
Yeah.
So
Probably. Yeah.
probably not. I don't know. I'm just saying it was hilarious to read it. Let's go ahead and move into our next story, and don't forget to vote on April 1st.
Yeah. And if you miss going to prom,
Yes,
this
if
is
you
great.
your
miss
court's having another
going
one.
to prom, or if your prom kind of sucked, you can do it again.
Or if you loved your prom.
Or that too.
Like, what if you just loved it and had an amazing time? And you just want to relive that moment again?
Sounds like you did.
I did. I went a few times. So.
I don't remember my
I don't need to
prom.
go again, but I went like 3.
So.
I went to other people's proms too, so I was like, I don't actually need to go again.
That's fair. But if you do want to go to
Mm-hmm.
prom again, the Vericourt Neighborhood Center's Prom Encore or Adult Prom, whichever name you want to use, they're both right. It's coming back for its second year. Last year was a resounding success. It is a fundraising effort to fund social welfare programs with the Vericourt Neighborhood Center. This year, you can come there, dance, do some prom, and help support fundraising efforts for older adult programming, which is going to be its focus this year.
Okay.
Right now, they're trying to draw attention to the fact that Wisconsin's population over 65 is currently 780,000, but that is expected to nearly double by 2040.
Oh, wow.
And there's really no real social safety that's in place or programming,
A capacity to.
basically.
Yeah.
But that's an issue actually happening all over the country. But
Right,
in
right.
Madison's, it is especially large.
Mm-hmm.
So go to Adult Prom.
When is it?
Saturday, April 5th from 5:30 to 10 p.m. at Garver Feed Mill Atrium. Tickets are currently on sale for $50. Go have some fun. Go do
Yeah.
prom again.
Mm-hmm.
And we will we'll put a link to that on the show notes.
Yep.
And then one other thing, Omar, you covered this week is Dr. Ronak Mehta being
Yes.
named to Inc.
Inc.
magazine's.
Inc.'s Female Founders 500
Okay.
for her venture, Nerdbugs. If you've heard of Nerdbugs or not, it is a Madison-based company that makes plushie organs inspired by a children's book that Dr. Ronak Mehta made while in medical school. The book didn't really turn out too well, but she had the inspiration and it sat in the back of her mind, so she decided to make plushies out of it. The point of it is to help kind of humanize and
Mhm.
make the conversations around health a little bit easier, especially for children.
Mhm.
They're neato little things, and they're not like when you get organ of anything like kind of cutesy, it doesn't always look like the actual organ. Obviously, it's gonna look cartoonish. No, these are the organs.
Right.
These
and
are
this
this
is
is
not
what they look
but
like.
it's a heart. It's not a Valentine's heart with the
No,
two
no,
loves on top of the
it's a
bottom.
heart
It's a human heart, like
with
you
a
can tell.
smiley face.
But it's cute.
it's blushing. They are cute.
Yeah, and when we say plushy organs, like it's exactly what you think it is.
Yeah.
It is internal organs made plushy and cute.
Absolutely. So 100,000 of those have been sold around the country, and it's been partnering with children's hospitals also to donate nerd bugs to the children. They plan to actually re-release the initial children's book that Dr. Mehta wrote over a decade ago, and that's their next step. They want to become the Disney of health, happy and friendly, marketed towards kids, and bring up some conversations.
Yeah, we'll link to that story that Omar did on that in the show notes as well. And before we get to our break, can we just note that Nicholas's prediction that it's the fifth year cycle, and that Wisconsin would make the Elite Eight probably. BYU had something to say about that.
They did. I mean, every 10 years, on the fifth year of the decade, Wisconsin usually goes to the Elite Eight.
Yeah. And we were talking about this before, and Omar made the point that there were a couple years in that sort of COVID period that maybe didn't count. So maybe it'll be next year.
Oh, look at you all making up excuses.
The COVID year doesn't count.
That's a young team. It's a young team. They just don't know how to run like this.
Yeah, but John Tanji is
But they don't know how to run it.
Like their best players going to be out.
Well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens. But they don't know how to run like this. That's what it is. Yeah. Like they had a really good run in the Big Ten, right? Like that I was absolutely surprised by. They looked amazed, but I'm like, they're running a guess because they don't know how to do this. Because they're a young team. Which means like they will get there. Hopefully, they gotta recruit. They need to do a couple more recruiting here to make it next season. But I can see something there. They just ran out of steam because like that going from the Big Ten tournament then into the NCAA tournament is just that's a rush.
Aren't they always a young team? Isn't that how?
It's like
sports works.
Well,
kind of is now.
But they're a young team playing together for the first time, right? So like they're not there yet. I don't think. There needs to be consistency in the coaching. There needs to be consistency in the recruiting. They need to figure out their mess and keep that mess in-house and not let it leak out, y'all. Stop letting that's drama outside. Don't bring the drama outside. That puts even more pressure and stress on them. Do the business right. Look, I absolutely play and watch and listen and have opinions about sports. I just don't share them because Rob has more into soccer than everything else.
Well, on that, the opposite of that, in the WIAA Division III, the Milwaukee Academy of Science won state, and their coach Agape Keys, somebody that I'm hoping to profile for Madison 365. So Agape, open your email if you're listening.
Hang out.
He started their basketball program from scratch.
That's what I heard.
In 2007, and now has built it into this juggernaut.
Oh, that's awesome.
Some would say built it into a science.
Oh,
right. Well, the Academy of Science kids are not the science nerds that you are thinking of. His whole starting lineup is going D1.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way that group is not going D1. And he's creating a lasting program in that, too, which is amazing.
That's outstanding.
Yeah. So open your email.
Yeah, open your email.
Hang out with us.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Or at least hang out with Nick. Yeah.
Speaking of soccer also, Henny Derby this weekend. Fort Madison going to Richmond. That's the Hennessy Derby, which is the black fan-led rivalry.
One day, Rob, we will go to Richmond. One day.
Yeah. Last year, the league actually scheduled Henny Derby on Juneteenth.
Oh, that's right.
Which was awesome.
That was a good idea.
This year it's not so much. This year's like this weekend, and then in September they'll come to Madison. But then we have first time ever. Okay, for people who don't know. ESL League One, where Fort Madison competes, is third division.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We are in the U.S. Open Cup tournament, which, we being Fort Madison, which pits all levels of soccer teams in the same tournament, just like the FA Cup does in England. So we beat Duluth FC last week, 5-1, and now we take on FC Tulsa, which is a Division II team. In Madison. So it's the first time ever that we're going to have a Division II team hosted here at Bruce Stevens Field. So that's going to be a very exciting match.
And what day is that?
That's Wednesday, April 2nd.
At what time, Rob?
6:30 p.m.
So you'll be leaving the house at what time? So I know.
I might just go because I might just
because he just doesn't tell me. He doesn't look. Everybody, Rob doesn't tell me he's planning to go see soccer games until we come on this podcast, and then I have to find out here. I'm like, why would he? What's the schedule?
This is our family planning podcast.
Yeah. According to Rob. Mm-hmm. Anyways, yeah, it's fine. It's hilarious.
But that's exciting. And then a couple weeks later, we'll host Indy 11, which is another championship, their second division team. In the Jägermeister Cup, which is a totally other tournament.
The Jägermeister and Hennessy Cup.
Y'all need to.
What is going on?
Well,
with
last
these
year,
names?
when they announced the Jägermeister Cup format, that Jägermeister was going to be the sponsor. I asked, what happens if Richmond and Madison end up in the final of that tournament? Is it going to be like the Jäger Henny Derby, the Hennymeister Derby?
Look at Rob asking the right questions.
If I do recall, that was also your first time tasting Jägermeister.
It was.
That's right. Yes. I know. Rob is very sheltered in his experience of a lot of things.
And he liked it.
He did like it. He was surprised that he liked it. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. It's an active term right now.
On ice, yeah. So yeah, I'll be getting by April. There will be many Hennessy shots taken on April 26th when Indy 11 comes to town.
For whom?
Whoever's in the forward club.
Okay, but yeah.
After the match.
Okay, not you though.
Probably not.
No.
Well, whoever's there.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. Let's not make any plans right now.
So I'm not driving all the way down there to pick you up, so no.
No, away matches in the Jägermeister Cup is when I drink my Jägermeister at home.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, Joanne Pritchett will be here. We're back, and joining us now, Joanne Pritchett, who's running for District 9 Alder for the City of Madison Common Council. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for giving us the time, and thanks for throwing your hat in the ring. I mean, I know it's a big commitment to try to do this public service thing, right?
Yes, it is. This is my first time doing this.
And why now? Why did you decide to do it?
Well, I thought it was time for a change. And so I represent a change.
All right.
From what we had before, what we have right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been around. You've been a community person for a long, long time.
Yes, I have been around in Madison for 50 plus years. But I was born and raised in the Deep South, in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
I'm a product of a mom and a dad and 5 other siblings. A mom who was educated to the 10th grade, and a dad who was educated to the 8th grade. But parents who put all 6 kids through college.
Okay.
So that's pretty much who I am. But as I said, I was born and raised, especially during the segregated South, where things were pretty horrible.
Yeah.
Expectations very, very low. Things that you could and you couldn't do because there was a penalty to be paid if you did this or you did that. But despite that, despite all the odds, we survived. And it has made me into the person that I am today because of those past experiences.
Sure, I'm sure. And you worked in healthcare, right? Most of your career and in teaching nursing?
Yes. As a result of being born in Birmingham in a segregated South, you couldn't go to an integrated school or to, let's say, for example, the University of Alabama. So I was educated then at Tuskegee University.
Okay.
And from there, I had to do clinicals in New York because you couldn't do it in Alabama. But despite that, the learning, the clinicals set me up for today. So it was negative in one way, but it was positive in yet another.
It got you where you are.
Yes. So getting a master's degree and then later on getting a PhD degree at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a master's degree at the University of Illinois. So I've been around.
You've been traveling, and you landed here.
Yes.
Right. So, and now you're turning the page and looking to turning elected politics.
Right, turning the page, looking at everything that I have learned before, but then how you conceptualize it and you turn it into something brand new. And this brand new thing for me is politics.
All right.
Yes,
All right.
running for Alder.
What have you lived in District 9 for a long time, or that neighborhood?
I lived, no, when I first came to Madison, I was living on the west side.
Okay.
And I've always lived on the west side. But after moving from an apartment condo and then buying a house, and then deciding it was time for me to move, meaning I didn't want to cut grass and blow snow anymore. I feel that. Yes, I decided to get a condo. And so I moved to, the 9th district. And I've been there now for 10 plus years.
Okay. So, wow, you know.
Yes, I know the district. I know the lay of the land.
Yep. And what are and in those 10 years, just talking to people, but then also now being on the campaign trail, knocking on doors, what are the main things that you hear that are concerns for people that you might address as an alder?
A major thing that I hear is a result of canvassing, really, is when you look at the role of the mayor, and that person is supposed to be an advocate at the table for you. You can't put every citizen or constituent in District 9 at the table at City Council building. So you have an alder, person who's supposed to advocate for you, to speak up and speak out for your issues, for District 9 issues and concerns. But if you don't have that, then who's going to do it? Who's going to speak up and speak out? So a major reason then goes back to advocacy. And that role has not been fulfilled by the current alder.
I see. What, and when you say advocacy and speaking up, what is it they want you to speak up about?
When you have issues, let's say, for example, traffic lights, or let's say...
Oh, so you're talking about specific, constituent service things.
Yes.
I see.
Okay. So issues, let's say, for example, why is it, District 9, does not have this or does not have that? If you wanted to, let's say, put in, a doggy care center, there are city ordinances and things like that you have to follow. It's not zoned for that.
Right.
Okay. So if you bring this issue to the alder's supposed to bring those issues to the table. That is not being done.
I see.
Okay. Environmental issues, to have the city come in and they've made a previous mistake and haven't taken care of it, and then you have an alder who votes against you. An alder who is not at the table to talk about your issues and concerns. Rather, you have an alder from yet another district to come in and speak up and speak out for you.
And when did that happen?
That happened at the beginning of an issue dealing with Salt Creek. So we had an alder from Barbara McKinney was there to speak up and speak out for District 9. The current alder for District 9 was not present.
At the beginning.
She
cited that, Alder Nikki Conklin cited the Salt Creek thing as an accomplishment of hers.
Nothing could, no. That is definitely not true.
Okay.
The groundwork, the homework, the research was done by the Friends of Salt Creek.
Okay.
That was not done. Rather, the alder used talking points from city administrators.
Oh.
Okay. This is how it happened. Okay. Things that were suggested, not done. People who live in the district. Former director of DNR. Professor from the university. Experiencing climate change. Those are the people who did a lot of the work, okay, to say this is what needs to be done regarding floods, cutting down of trees, etc. So if you have a person who does not have background experiences or a person who appreciates that there is climate change, then you're going to have someone who does not know whether to speak up or speak out for you. You're listening to a different voice. That is what happened. So no, it's not true.
Okay. So the as a make sure I'm catching you right here. The Friends of Salt Creek, which is local grassroots people,
exactly,
said you made some recommendations, suggestions from their expertise and from their experience. And the current alder didn't take that advice as much, or listen more to city administration.
Listen more to city administration.
Okay. Excuse me. That's okay. I know that Salt Creek Greenway is
It's a
massive
big
issue for
yes, it
your
is.
district, right?
Yeah, right.
And where does it sit now? What's the...
Well, now, so then, as of, if I'm not mistaken, on March 11th, it was approved by, to move forward on
the plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with the Friends of Salt Creek, advocating for this and advocating for that, then they say, well, we'll scale back on doing this, but they don't tell you. You still don't know. Okay. Look at it this way. If you have done a thorough assessment, if you have utilized people with expertise, knowing this and knowing that, then why not listen to those individuals? You're listening to individuals who don't know, the ebb and flow of Salt Creek. You're listening to people who perhaps don't appreciate, they don't have the background experience, And then to say we spent 3,000 hours working on this. Well, that was 3,000 hours that was not well spent. I can perform, let's say, for example, if you needed something done in here, and I said, I can do it, and then I don't tell you how much it's going to cost. I don't tell you whether or not, I can complete it or not, or what it's going to look like. Then I say, I'm finished. What have you accomplished? What do you have as a person that paid me? So you got to start thinking about what is it that we want? How can we assess it? Once we have assessed this, what are the advantages of doing this versus the advantages of doing that? We all do that on a daily basis. 3,000 hours spent on doing this and doing. If you don't have the expertise, I could spend 3,000 hours trying to take apart your cell phone.
But it's not going to happen. Right?
But I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. Are you relatively satisfied or content with the way the plan turned out?
No.
So you think it needs more work yet? Or?
I think we need an independent voice.
Okay.
An independent voice of individuals who understand environmental things, ecology,
so
that thing.
If you're elected, would you work to...
Well, right now they've passed it.
Right.
And it was done in a manner consistent with not having a new set of alders coming in.
Right. But is there anything that you could do about it as an alder?
Well, you can still yell and scream, and that's something I intend to do. I don't intend to shut up.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to do.
I know the Salt Creek Greenway issue and the planning and trying to figure out what we're going to do with that bit of that sort of strip of land.
Right.
Which is, how long is it? It's a couple miles, isn't it?
Yeah, you could say a couple. Thereabout.
And that's been going on for years. But we've been trying to figure this out. Is that kind of like the difficult process that's churned through that? Is that kind of what prompted you to want to jump in?
You know what prompted a lot of this? When you think you've seen a stormwater, collection, where they have like these to collect debris. Okay. Do you recall the flooding of Gammon?
Yep.
Yeah, Gammon,
Yep.
Odana, and Grand Canyon?
Yep.
I'm a walker. And right in that area, especially on Gammon Road, right by Denny's, there's a collection to collect debris.
Right, the little soccer fields right there.
Right. Hadn't been cleaned. Not cleaned at all. And so then there's one over by the soccer field as well. So then there's a whole area that's supposed to be collecting water, and then hopefully it will disperse itself. So when you don't maintain the maintenance plans in Madison, even to have officials say the plan is to clean it every 30 years, what does that say to you? You have to do something. If you purchase a house, you have to maintain it. The city has to have a well-developed maintenance plan as well. If you know you've had a severe torrential rain, there will fallen trees and branches. Would you wait 30 years to go in?
Right.
Would you do that? No. So it's one thing to say we need to do this in order to make sure that the water flows. But you also got to go back and look at what's the cause of this? A lot of this was caused by when they constructed and built Menards on the west side, Target on the west side. those businesses bear very, very little responsibility. So when that water, when the drainage, drains and it goes into, it runs underneath the belt line, and then from there along Greenbrier Apartments into Cross Tree Lane, and then it flows north, along that behind condos and houses in that area. So you walk through there and you can see trees that have fallen, never cut down, or removed. So those are the kinds of things that create problems. I'm saying if you really, really, really want to make sure that Salt Creek, the flow of it, make sure, go in and then look at, assess, do it grid by grid by grid to see where is the debris. You can see where erosion has occurred. Granted, there are some opportunistic plants there that should be removed, trees that should be removed, but you have to also look at what can we maintain. You're going to cut down these trees just to get like a little bobcat in there to cut down something? Does that make sense to you? So we haven't done a good assessment. We haven't looked at. When I lived in Westmoreland, neighbors went out and cleaned stormwater collection places, removing debris. And it was a fun activity for the community. But for even asking the city to partner with, what can neighbors do, what can homeowners do to maintain this? Give us some chainsaws or something. We can start clipping stuff away. But you don't partner. You're just going to know you're going to rule with an iron fist. And that is something, partnerships and things like that just don't exist.
The city government, mayor's office, departments aren't engaged as much as you think they should be with the local
That's right.
community.
It's one thing to say that we are engaged with the community. But engagement, in my opinion, is you don't wait until you have an idea and now you are developing it and now you go to the community. Have them at the table at the same time. We recognize this is a problem, I want to get input from you. I want to hear the voices of the people who actually experience this. What are your ideas? And that is something that has not happened.
There were quite a few sort of town hall kind of meetings, weren't there, about soccer?
There were multiple town hall meetings, But once again, if you have an Alder that's sitting on the sideline, bereft of ideas, you have not talked to the people, then what does that say? You're not listening to them, you're listening to another voice.
I gotta say, when I first started covering local government, probably 25 years ago, one thing that I noticed right away was how big a deal water is.
Yes.
Just where does the water go when it rains? Is a massive question for local government that I think most people don't quite understand how big a deal that is.
This is what I'm saying. If high school students, you can have high school students participate in little mini experiments. Throw in this, throw in that, throw in some rocks, throw in some branches, and then look to see what happens to it over time. Experiments. This is a process that you can use in multiple ways to determine the best outcome that you can get as a result of looking. When there's a crime, they do a grid to do this and do that.
Right.
Let's bring concepts from other areas to determine the best outcome that we're looking for.
So I think it's fair to say your sort of lead issue is environmental, which is the one of the big ways that local, at the district level, you can affect environmentally is water.
We can.
Right.
We can do so much. Yes, I am an environmentalist. I'll be honest with you. It is something that I had to grow up with because we didn't have. So you learn firsthand, how can you repurpose? How can you do this? How can you do that? Because I lived in an area My home as a child does not exist anymore because of flooding. Village Creek flooded, and so we don't have a Village Creek anymore. And so when you look at the flooding, what happened during a rain, and you think about, the number of times, that your parents had to move furniture around, had to move this around because of the flooding. It was the mud, it was the debris that collected. So I have a great understanding of what flooding is like.
Yeah. What else? Anything else that you're hearing about affordable housing, with traffic, public safety? Anything else you're hearing that are kind of priorities for folks?
Yes. Okay. So we talked about one of the priorities for the city of Madison is housing, affordable housing. So we hear daily, from the current Alder. Her priority is affordable housing, affordable housing. I believe in affordable housing. I support affordable housing. Well, at some point in time, when are you going to offer a way out? It's one thing to say I believe and I support, but I'm looking for an idea. I'm looking for a concept. And if you can't present that to me, you can believe and you can support for the rest of your life. I'm suggesting that when you want to create housing for individuals, you got to go around and you got to assess what you already have. Now, for example, at the corner of Whitney Way and Tokay, there is the empty COPS building there. It has been vacant for plus and minus 8-9 years. Across the street now, there was the former West Transfer Point.
Right.
Okay. Now, the COPS building or structure has 66,000 square feet plus. Okay. You can repurpose that, create housing that way. But I'm going to throw in one other thing. For many people, there are built-in obstacles to getting a home, getting an apartment. Why not have apartments that are in that building for all sets of incomes, okay? But throw in rent to buy, okay? Rent to buy. If you are low income, your credit score is this or that. You don't have the necessary funding to purchase a home, let alone an apartment. Come up with, you have financial people around here who can go around and who can begin to look at how can we best do that. They do it in other places. You're familiar with layaway plans? Take that concept, and how can you take that concept now and configure it in such a way that you can offer housing, rent to buy, offer classes. If you buy a home, don't you have to maintain it? If you own something, you're going to take better care of it, right? So offering rent to buy is one way for people to create wealth.
Right.
Take the concept, take the idea, and let's try and figure out how can we make this happen, especially for individuals who don't have homes and are trying to get into one.
Right. One more thing I want to ask about is sort of maybe inside baseball a little bit, but this Common Council, Madison, is famously known for very long meetings, a lot of pontification. But also lately, there's been some contentious moments over things that aren't necessarily policy issues, but more like sort of personnel matters.
Yes.
Is that okay? Is it maybe even positive to just mix it up a little bit, or is that something that needs to get smoothed out? Is that down to the mayor as the chair of the meetings? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I do believe, when you think about a meeting or you think about leadership, you have to always go back and you have to say, what is my role? And then when you look at your role and you know who you have to work with, at some point in time, collaboration has to be on the table. But if you're going to rule with an iron fist, then you're going to turn people off. So how do you go back? How do you reset? Okay, because reset is going to take place for swearing in. That's a given.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you going to do with it, okay? If you know now as a mayor that there are challenges out there, that there are people who have a brain and who can think out there, now what are you going to do in order to make sure or to ensure that Madisonians are getting the best? Because you cannot continue to rule with an iron fist. You cannot do that. Madison will not survive. I have ideas. You have ideas. One thing we don't do is listen. Listening is very important. Healthcare demanded that you listen to that patient, okay? Because the patient is a historian. In this particular instance, the residents are the historians. They know the ebb and flow of Madison, especially homeowners. You have to listen. There are things of where you're going to have to compromise. But seemingly compromise is something that it's like obtuse.
Yeah. Okay. Not a lot of compromise in politics these days. I like that the residents as historians, that they know not only what's happening now, but like what's been and where we've been and where we're coming, where we're going.
That's right. You have to listen to people, okay? The other thing, too, is when you have a group of people, when you circle yourself, with a group of people who will agree with you each and every time, and then the other voices are not heard, okay? So people who are going to say yes to you, yes to you, yes to you, of course you're going to invite them in, okay? For example, when you think about the executive committee, she's surrounded by people who will agree with her.
Her being the mayor.
Yes. So others, then they no longer have a voice. And the current mayor, the current alder for the 9th district is in the inner circle.
Well, Joanne Pritchett, thanks so much for being with us. How can people follow you or find more information about you? You got a website?
Yes, go to joannepritchett.com.
All right. We will link that in the show notes as well. There's only a few days left in this campaign.
Yes.
It's coming up.
Yes. As a matter of fact, next week this time, there will be...
There'll be a new council at some level.
A new council.
Right. All right. Well, thanks again for the time and best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we're back, and we're going to head right into our question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not from here. Omar is not from here either. No. But in Wisconsin, I don't know if it's everywhere in Wisconsin, but at least in Dane County, there is this practice where if your high school athletic team does well at a conference or an event or,
state or sectionals or
whatever. I would like to encourage you all to maybe do this practice for other type of events,
Mm-hmm.
for like,
Science Olympiad.
Yeah, some other things
Teacher
too.
problem solving.
Yeah, as well. But okay, the sirens go, like the fire trucks and the ambulances, the town's fire truck and ambulance will
escort the team back into town
with sirens and lights. Which, by the way, a girl from not here and from where I'm from, when that means something's happened bad.
Yeah,
right.
That's what that means.
That's what that means. That's what I've been taught.
Yeah. And then where we live like just down from Main Street, so we can see the fire trucks and stuff going very slowly down the street with the lights going, and then there's a school bus behind them.
But they go for a while. They tour the town, so they go for
all the way down
5 or 10 minutes of this.
Okay. If the team is just one, aren't they tired?
Don't they want to go home?
Let them rest.
Yeah. But also, it goes on for a long time.
But this happened in Madison last week when the women's hockey team won the NCAA
and people
in
called.
overtime.
And people called because they were concerned.
And they were the police and fire escorted them back into town.
So with that premise, understanding, what if you could choose whatever thing that you were good at, thing that you won, thing that you should be celebrated for.
Celebrated for?
Yeah. Whatever you would like it to be. It doesn't have to be sports related.
What would you be escorted into town for?
Yeah. After coming back and with your, great win, great
good job, whatever it was.
Well, I thought the question was something initially different. The sound you would choose.
Sound. No. You can do both. You can answer both.
I'm gonna do that. Anyway.
Yeah.
I can't believe the sound that continuously haunts my nightmares. The door buzzer of my family's liquor store, the place that I worked at since 10 years old. Mm-hmm. The noise, just you can never forget it. It's horrible. I'm not gonna make the noise. It's gonna sound weird.
It's a very specific.
But like I always say, is it really a trip back home if my dad doesn't ask me to go work at the family store? So that noise is a noise of me returning and catching up with people in the neighborhood.
Okay, but what would you like?
What would you be
celebrate for with an escort?
Omar's back at the liquor store. People are excited to see me.
Okay,
my cousin works there and he sucks. They don't like him. They're like, "Oh, you're here? Thank God."
Please help us. Like, you just do the register better. You know, to get like, better customer service.
Yeah, you're funnier. You like to talk nonsense with us. You make fun of everyone that comes through the door, and we like you better. Okay.
All right, Nick, what about you?
As a returning conquering journalist, I think, going through the streets of Wanakee, for sure.
Absolutely.
My WNAs in hand and
first place WNA trophy.
Yeah, basically treated like they do at Madison College, where I was introduced once as an esteemed graduate by Jack Daniels. I was
that's
like,
all you need.
I was like, all right.
All right, that's all I need. That's enough. Okay, Rob, what about you?
First, my little story about this.
Yeah, Rob said right away as I came up with this, I was telling the questioner explaining it. Rob says, like, I got a story.
Okay, 1992.
Oh, gosh.
I'm a senior. We go to, this is our wrestling team, was actually good that one year. Mm-hmm. And I wrestled 103, and we went to conference, and we won the conference tournament. So we're coming back home. We get off the exit on the bus. And the cop pulls in behind us to escort us through town. Nobody told the bus driver this.
Oh.
And he panicked. He pulled over. Oh. And he stood up. He's like, I don't have my license on me.
Oh.
I don't know what I'm going to do. And the cop actually walked up to the door and knocked on the door. And he's like, we're just escorting you through town because you won conference.
So nobody. That's the other thing to y'all. Tell the bus drivers another reason why not to do it.
Exactly. That's a normal reaction.
I thought something was wrong the first time I heard it. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Rob's like, because it was like at, I don't know, like 9 o'clock at night, and there was so many sirens. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, do you know what's going on? Rob's like, oh, it's the gymnastic team is coming back. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I'm going to bed. I'm done with y'all. Okay, so what would yours be?
Some sort of state record fish.
Oh dear God! Some sort of
like the state, if I like went up north and kind of like state record walleye or something. I think that would be what I would. And I would like be holding it out the window of the
police escort and everything.
Everything just for
everything
get a ride on top of the fire truck,
holding my fish. What about you, Steph?
So I have like a few, but this is the one I'm going to choose because it's the most recent one. Last year, I was invited to join my cousins and my uncle's NFL fantasy football league. What? And I was like, I've never played before. I'm like, just come and play with us. I'm like, all right, fine, suck it. So I played, and I won.
I was about to ask.
I was not only that, but I had the worst. I was like the second to last picking of everything. Mm-hmm. And I just have a bunch of uncles and a bunch of cousins who happen to be men. And so it was all of them plus me.
Yeah.
And so they're like, how are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. What are you picking? I don't know. Like, Tyrion helped me. Like, our oldest son was like, just do it like this. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. I won that thing. Mm-hmm. I went all the way. I was a champion. That's all I needed.
And you've never let them live it down?
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah,
I was like, no. Like, we should think about a trophy. They're like, no. We should think about, like, now they do it for cash. I'm like, no, I'm not as interested anymore. Now it feels different. Right. Yeah. But they're like, we want to win. Like, but yeah, absolutely. That's what I should be coming in for. It's like that moment to beat them all with and I wasn't trying to, like, you're not even trying to, like, switch things up. I'm like, no, I have work. And I got a bunch of kids. I got things to do today. And they're like, well, I'm just worried for you. I'm like, whatever.
You did the master strategy of
I just
never
nothing,
changing your
nothing,
life. I do it
doing nothing
every year.
And
I don't
Nothing.
lose, but I don't win.
I didn't.
And we're a punishment league, so
I mean,
that
and this
works.
was maybe not last year, the year before. It was the year before. This year, I did that strategy again. I really didn't try, and I didn't win at all. But that first year, it's like, no matter. I won the first year. It does not matter. Never will matter again. I just need to win one before I will ever let it go. Never ever. So that would be mine.
Perfect.
I know. We'll be back next week, y'all.
Don't forget to vote.
Yeah, April 1st.
365 Amplified is produced and edited by me, Rob Chappell, and is a production of 365 Media Foundation, a nonprofit, local, independent media organization in Madison, Wisconsin. Wherever you're listening to this right now, hit the subscribe or follow button to get new episodes every Friday. And between episodes, get your latest news at madison365.org and follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. Wherever you get your news, we'll be there.